I've been meaning to weigh in on the debate of the range of motion, and I understand if you're selling programs, if you're training athletes, selling programs, it's a very good idea to have a coherent system and explanations why you should do one or the other, whether it's partial reps or full depth. But I'm here to tell you something a little bit different that can't really be sold, and I'm definitely not selling this to you. Range of motion is something that, for being professional, is going to be selected on a case-by-case basis. It's going to be selected individually, and then even when you have an individual, we may change the range of motion due to specific movements. Someone might do bench press to 90 degrees and squat full depth, or vice versa. And then the range of motion is again going to be affected by things like load, velocity, speed, loading patterns, time in someone's programming, whether it's in season, off season, specific goals as well. So it's not such a simple thing to say, yeah, you should always squat to parallel, you should always squat full depth. These things all depend on context. And if you pull them out of context, then, we can debate whatever we want, but it is the context that actually dictates if something is a good idea or not. I want to add a couple of things that I think will help make more sense out of all of this. So the first thing is, if we are preparing our tissues for something, we're going to be using very minimal amount of loads, and we may be using extreme ranges of motion. On the other hand, we have already done this, and now we have to exert strength or produce power. Naturally, we're going to be limiting the range of motion to the part where we are able to produce power and exert sufficient amount of strength while minimizing the chances of injury. There's a good reason why, again, powerlifters squat to parallel and they're not expected to squat full depth. Just as an example, we all know that there are these things called the force curves, and that basically means that you're kind of the strongest in the middle or where you are mechanically in the most advantageous position. But this is highly personal as well. So some people are going to have much more uniform strength curve. Other people are going to have kind of a U-shaped, or they're going to have like a much steeper force curve. And range of motion, like I said, is something that has to be determined for the individual in question, with goals in mind that we have, with training objectives, and even within the training session, we may actually change the range of motion that we're using for the same exercise. I'll just give you an example of this. If a person is doing like third or fourth set of squats and we're using some type of objective measure of depth, and we see that athlete is failing or struggling, we may decide to reduce the depth for the last couple of sets or reps. Also, if we want to minimize the amount of delayed onset muscle soreness, we may choose to avoid extreme ranges of motion on the last couple of reps when our muscles are pumped to avoid decompression of our axons. But I'll talk more about what delayed onset muscle soreness is in one of the next talks. So all you have to understand right now is that range of motion is not something set in stone. It is something that we actually have to determine on a case-by-case basis. It has to be individualized. It has to be concurrent with the training goals and with the demands that we're placing on the athlete at the moment. And if you're choosing a hill to die on in these internet debates, I would recommend choosing another one, because this is really not something that can be generalized so easily. Okay, thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed. Leave a comment if you agree or disagree. Feel free to share this with someone who may need to hear it, and I'll talk to you some other time.